Hey guys, welcome to Tyson's Fitness Tips podcast. If you want to lose weight, increase your energy, improve your health and fitness, and look your best, then you have come to the right place. My name is Tyson Brown. I'm a personal trainer, and my job is to help you transform your body by sharing with you the most up-to-date information on health and fitness. I'm going to distill it all down for you into bite-sized actionable steps that you can take immediately to see results quickly. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday, you can expect a brand new episode, which will be a mixture of interviews with top experts from around the world in the fitness space, and as well as solo episodes from myself, sharing with you exactly what action steps you need to take to transform your health, your body, and your life. So, let's get into the show.
Cool.
Yeah, you ready to rock and roll?
Still, bro?
Yeah,
Sweet. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tyson's Fitness Tips. Now, I've been interviewing a lot of Americans lately, and I thought I might as well bring it back to our backyard. So I've actually got two Aussies who run one of the top fitness podcasts in Australia. So I thought it would be really cool to bring them on today because they interview a lot of really cool guests, and I love listening to these guys. And I'm sure they've taken away like a lot of tips from, just like from nutrition, fitness, in every area. So I thought, you know what, I might as well interview these guys and ask them what they've learned, what's been the biggest, takeaways for them, so we can actually learn it too. So I want to welcome Lach and Raph to the show. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. So why don't you tell us, first of all, tell us what got you guys into the podcast industry, first of all, start actually doing podcasts.
Yeah, we started 3 years ago now, I think just about, and we just started to add more value to our members. We have a gym in Marrickville, and we had a nutrition challenge at the gym. We did a podcast, like an in-person podcast. It actually was a really good one. He came back on the show for episode 50, and he was just adding value about nutrition, about lifestyle for our members. We really enjoyed recording it. We just put it out to the member base. And then we had John North, who was basically here for a seminar, and it was a pretty wild weekend in general with John. And he was like, yeah, it's a really good idea if you guys just keep this up, keep doing it every week. So pretty quickly we realized that more people than just people at the gym want to listen to it, which is a good idea because then you can get bigger guests. And we just went around interviewing all the fitness names in Australia until we basically started to run out after about a year. And then we started doing Skype interviews overseas and traveling overseas to do bigger and better podcasts.
That's sick. And so you guys have been, how long has it been since you started now? Has it been 2 years or 3 years?
It's been 3 years because we're getting close to episode 200.
Yeah.
So that's actually 4 years.
Yeah,
because it's one a week.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 4 years.
And you just said you guys also own a few gyms too. So what's the actual, what are the gyms called?
So the gyms are Creature Fitness, Marrickville, basically from Bondi. They're basically all-round fitness studios where we do a combination of CrossFit, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, gymnastics, conditioning, and strongman movements. And we do it in a hybrid sort of setting. So we integrate personal training and group training for basically anyone that wants to join up.
That's pretty sick. And so you guys do that. You also obviously do the podcast, and then Raph, you've also got a not a supplement company, I guess it's like a, what do you call it?
I wouldn't call it a supplement company. It's it's a dark chocolate product.
Confectionery company.
Yeah.
It's a delicious
Really
dark chocolate. That's what that is.
It's a dark chocolate with supplements in it, so I guess it'd probably be confectionery. I think our trademark is in confectionery, so.
Okay, cool. And so, obviously doing that, Raph, because you've got, you guys have got a lot going on at the moment. How do you both manage to make time for your health and fitness? Do you set a certain time of day where you're you know what, I've got to get out there, I've got to go and train? Or how do you both manage that aspect when it comes to looking after your own health?
Well, for me, I still have a coach. So the coach keeps me on track. I train with him for 2 hours twice a week. And then I probably train an hour and a half when I'm on my own. Another 3 days a week. And it probably would fall off the wagon a bit, but because he just, I pay for it and he writes it all down, I've got to at least get 75% of it done. Otherwise, I feel like shit about it. So that gets me training hard, at least 5 days a week.
And for me personally, I also have a coach, an online coach that programs about 3 to 4 days a week of training for me, just based off whatever my goals are at the time. Right now, I don't have any real set goals in stone. I just wanted to try a lot of different new movement practices this year. So I've started breakdancing, my practice, and enjoy myself, write that up. Awesome. Before I basically take anything with my coach too seriously. So right now I'm just trying to stay healthy and strong and practice this new sort of form of movement.
Nice one. And so would you say, like, obviously one of the big incentives for you guys to actually stay active and fit is actually having that coach, paying the money, having skin in the game to say, like, well, I'm actually paying to do this, and someone's there on the other end to kind of keep you accountable too?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been a pretty big believer. I think since like Drew, one of our kind of like business mentors, told us about it, about how wherever you spend your money, like your energy tends to go. So I think still spending money towards it is really important. When you're spending $0 towards it, I guess something's fucked up in some way. So I do think the money and the coach does keep it on track.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And what about, like, do you guys, so obviously probably members coming into the gyms, like sometimes they fall off track too, even though they're paying for the gym. Do you find, like, what do you find is a good way to, if someone's lost motivation or they just don't feel like they're too busy for the gym, how do you kind of get them back in there, get them start moving again? Because I know a lot of people who listen, they have good intentions and they might even be paying for a gym or a personal trainer, but sometimes they kind of just fall off track for whatever reason. It might be work, it might be, shit's going on at home, and they might just fall off. So how do you kind of incentivize people to get back into the gym if the money incentive's not working?
It's a good question. I don't do
question.
Yeah, I don't do like a huge amount of it now because I don't have like my own clients. My coaches have their own clients, but I do deal a lot with clients that I guess told me one thing 6 weeks ago and now telling me something very different when they want to leave 6 weeks later. And yeah, it's not usually the product like that we're offering. It's almost always like something in their life. So I guess what I would do in those situations is almost always just try and realign them to the reason they came in the first place. So, they walked in for a reason. That's like kind of the best thing, right? They've always come to you, so like you've always got that over them. They came to you because something was wrong. Almost 100% chance that thing has not gone away in 5 weeks' time. So it's realigning them with like, hey, you reached out, you like went through the text messaging and the booking in, and then walking to the gym. You did all these things for a reason, and it's like realigning them to that reason when things have got a bit harder 5 weeks later.
Okay, so it's kind of like, like you said, they came to you with a reason, so it's like reminding them of that why. Like, what is the reason you're actually here trying to get fit and healthy? And just kind of, just like, they might have just forgot it, or, it would be clear on the board, and you say, hey, you came to me because you said you want to look good for a wedding, or you want to look, you want to be old enough to be able to walk your daughter down the aisle, or something like that. Just reminding them that might spark that incentive to kind of get back going again.
Yeah, I think so. Asking if it's still important to them. If it is still important to them, then cool. We've got to be taking action, whether with us or with somewhere else, to be moving towards it.
That's cool. And so, like for you, obviously, because I know you do a lot of, like you guys working on the gym, you do a lot of the back-end stuff too, so you're not as active doing the coaching and things like that, but you are, like, do you spend most of your day sitting now?
I do. I spend a lot of the day, well, actually, it's kind of a combination of sitting and kneeling, so that's how I keep my back pain-free.
Okay, so like I was actually going to ask you more about that, like, how do you stay pain-free and stuff like that. So when you say kneeling, like, are you actually kneeling on do you have a chair, or are you kneeling on like a cushion? What's going on there?
Well, we've got this, I'll show you the video. I know it's the people listening at home, but basically it's called a kneeling chair. It looks like this. It's got a kneeling pad.
Yeah.
And an arm pad. I think you spend about $70 on them. And it's good for kneeling. Up to probably 30 minutes until it really starts to hurt your knees and your shins, at which point you can adopt multiple positions. One is like a sort of a squat sort of position on it, which didn't come in the instruction manual, but ends up being a variation. But overall, I think in an hour you probably change positions probably 10 to 15 different times, which is obviously just good in general for not sitting in the same position for too long. So it's pretty good. And then every now and then I'll try and get up and walk around and go outside and get some sun, usually when I'm pretty hungry. So if I go and get food, I try not to bring it to my desk. I try and at least once a day take that food outside, like whether it's in the morning, that's most ideal, so I can hit the sun early, or at lunchtime.
Oh, nice one. That's cool. And I think one thing you said there was really important. Like, we talk about how bad sitting is for us, but standing in the one place or kneeling in the one place for like another hour or two isn't any better either. You want to constantly kind of be changing up those positions, so you're not obviously stuck in one position and just making imbalances or anything like that too.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And do you do any, like, I don't know, in the meantime, whether it be before a workout or later on during the night, do you do any stretches or anything to kind of release what's been tight during the day? So maybe type hip flexors or type pecs or anything like that, or not really?
Generally from all the stuff we've kind of learned over the years, it doesn't really seem like, unless you're really going to go for it in a session, that stretching and rolling out and that sort of stuff has any long-term benefits. So it might give you some like immediate relief, but probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes post that, you'll pretty much be back to the exact same state that you were before. So even though it could give you some good short-term benefits, I don't really do it for that. I'm only going to really invest in something that gives me some long-term benefits. So I don't have any really sort of stretching routine or anything like that. I just try and have a bit of movement in the day. So whether that's just some joint circles or just some walking, anything which kind of allows joint rotation and blood flow, that's sort of what I prioritize over like maybe sitting in a cat stretch or sitting in a pancake for 5-10 minutes.
Okay, cool. So like no specific thing, but I guess just getting the blood going around the body every couple of hours type of thing just to get yourself moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah. And so obviously, you guys being able to interview so many people, is there like, if I could say like what are the top, let's talk about like nutrition, we'll go nutrition and workouts. When it comes to nutrition, what are like 3 key things that you guys over those 200 episodes, did you say?
Yeah.
Over those episodes, like what are some things that you've just stuck with, like us telling you, like, you know what, I implemented this and this has been a game changer, or it's just improved your life in some way?
It's a good question.
It's like 4 years.
It's hard. Yeah, I would say it's hard because I would say there's a lot of really good stuff that I did really consistently that I don't do anymore, just because I've like moved on from it.
Okay, what was it? What was one of the things?
Such a long stretch. I want to start with what Lachlan just mentioned. I reckon, in terms of taking care of our body, a lot of the influence we've had has actually just been from the guests and people we've met through the podcast. And if you went back 4 years to what we used to do for that around episode 1, it's really, really different to what we do now. And I agree with Lachlan. I think a lot of stuff I did back then, I definitely wouldn't do now. Like I spend a lot more time just like foam rolling and stretching on bands and stuff like that really used to take up a lot of my time in the day. Like definitely more than an hour and probably more like 2 hours that I pretty much never do anymore. And pretty much like all the influence from that has come through the podcast. So that would be my first one.
Cool.
So for a nutrition one, I would say that probably the big thing we keep hearing like over and over again from like all the experts that we speak to is it's a lot about, well, a lot of the science is pointing us in the direction of like energy balance really is the ultimate determining factor for weight loss or gain. And so over time, we just kind of have built up our own knowledge and our own sort of ideas in our head about what works for nutrition. That's all laid on the foundation of like energy balance. So like the law of thermodynamics, calories in, calories out. It's not a myth. It's just science. So knowing that, if I eat no food in a day and I go and slam ice cream and chocolate at the end of the day, if I'm still under my maintenance calories, there's no way I can put on weight. And then obviously it's not great for your gut and stuff like that because it's a lot of sugar and it's not good for insulin and that sort of thing. But it's not like a huge concern that like you're going to put on weight or that you're going to lose weight. And so just understanding that as like a fundamental principle, and you kind of get it, but then when it's reinforced to you so many times over and over again, you just kind of get a better understanding of how to treat food, how to treat nutrition, what to expect from what you put in your body, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even on the nutrition one, it's basically the same thing, but my nutrition went through a pretty big transformation. Just pretty much every single person we've had on the podcast has been really similar line with their nutrition, and it's had people that do high intensity training drastically increasing their carbohydrates. And like I've seen really good results in myself, and then even recently, thinking about it now, quite a few clients at the gym as well. So many people like solo, and to give an example of how fucked I think it is now, is I was at the nutrition store downstairs from our gym, and they've got heaps of different protein powders you can get after a workout. Like a lot of people just go there and buy protein shakes after. So I went down and it's quite expensive. It's just $5, and I'm like, oh, like we've got some glucose or like what carbs we're doing, and they got no carbs
in the whole store.
Well, like only in the big tubs. So
right.
like they got all like 9 different flavors of protein for post workout, and no carbohydrates available.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the most important thing to get. And he's like, yeah. He's like, we don't even bother having it here because nobody that walks in this place wants to have a carbohydrate after a workout. And I'm like, man. And I had a good chat with him. It's like, he's like, yeah, people that know what they're doing, they have carbs and they go buy the tubs. It's like, if you know what you're doing, you're buying carbs, right?
Yeah.
You're organized. But like the average person that walks in after a workout these days, particularly from a Globo gym, walks in to get post-workout, they're like, nah, bro, like, don't be putting one carbohydrate.
No, I'm keto. I'm keto.
Yeah, kind of pretty amazing that that's still the case when, like, I don't know, 25 years ago, the first thing you saw when I first went to bodybuilding.com, the first thing it told me was to get 45 grams of carbs in my shake.
Yeah.
And I was like 10 years old.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good segue into the final nutrition thing, which is like, we pretty much are like anti any fad sort of diet, and any sort of benefits that they claim to have outside of like the medical benefits. So like, for an example, ketosis has shown some promise with like tumor growths and like cancer patients, but very, very minimal. But there is some like hope there. What most things boil down to is, again, like the law of thermodynamics. So when people like, I did keto and I lost all this weight, or I did paleo and I lost this weight, all you got to do is just realize that they just restricted their food groups, which meant they lowered their calories, which meant that's why they lost weight. And so before I used to think, fuck, maybe keto is the answer. Maybe paleo is the answer. Maybe high carb is the answer or whatever. But if you just look at it from a principles perspective, then you truly understand like what is actually going on there and why it happens. And it's a super useful tool for our gyms and our clients. And it just, I mean, all the experts keep repeating it to us, so it's like undeniable.
I'm really glad you guys like covered that point, because a lot like there just seems to be so much BS marketing on the opposite approach of saying, like you said, keto is the answer or paleo is the answer. And it seems like it's doing, yeah, sure, it does good in the short term because people are in a calorie deficit because they're cutting out all foods they can't control. But then they end up, people, what do they do when they lose all the weight? They end up going back to their old habits, eating shitty food again, and they put it all back on. And they're like, oh, well, what are you supposed to do? And it's trying to find like, I guess you wouldn't say a medium, but you can still have a little bit of chocolate at the end of the day if you're still in a calorie deficit and lose weight. So you don't have to completely deprive yourself from everything and think that you have to go keto.
That's right.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, like, I guess talking about the nutrition thing, what about like when it comes to training? Have you guys changed your training in particular? Like, do you train more now? Do you train less now, or it hasn't really changed over the years in regards to what you've been learning?
Well, I don't program my own training, so I don't have that much influence over it. I would definitely say, as a general trend, a lot of the people we have on the podcast, like, their time is very limited. So not many of them are like the do everything, throw it at the wall type of approach, because they're like on a podcast for a reason, right? They're like got things going on in their life. So it really does show you what you can do with limited time. But I would say that's probably had less of an influence. Just in general, CrossFit's changed a lot over the last 4 years, and that's probably influenced my training more than anything. Just following the trend of the sport, really.
Yeah, I try and keep it fun. So as soon as I'm not enjoying training or I'm not looking forward to it, I'll generally shift and look to do something else. Again, it's got to be the thing that is most time efficient. So if I'm going to block it out and I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to feel like whatever I invested my time into was worth it, because it's taking away from stuff that's extremely important to me. So yeah, if it is, starting a new movement practice like breakdancing, I'm going to make sure that, the time that I block out for it, I'm getting the best coaches, I'm going to the best school. I go to the classes when it's most convenient, takes away less time, just so when I block out a time and I make the investment, I feel like it's worth it.
Nice. I think you said one really good thing there, like about it being fun, right? Like, you can have the most optimal program in the world or whatever it is, and if you're not enjoying it and you just hate going there and doing it, then you're not going to stick to it in the long run. And I think that's why a lot of people are drawn to, your type of facilities and stuff like that, because you do have that little bit of, it's a fun workout. You're around other people. It's got that support group there, and it's more enjoyable as opposed to trying to grind away and do like an hour session by yourself of just some specific program that you just don't enjoy.
Yeah. And those people are probably, in a sport, or there's some kind of money incentive, or they've got a personal brand to uphold or whatever, or they're just sick in the head, but they're the vast minority of people. Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying. It's cool. And if I could recommend people to obviously go to your guys' podcast and listen, is there any three that you would really, like even two, that you would pick out and say, hey, go listen to these two because they've been the best? Or should people just go straight back to this? Like, honestly, I'd just tell people to go straight back to the start and listen to all of them. But what do you guys reckon?
I tell them not to go straight back to the start. That's the first thing I tell them. because even just the sound quality is pretty fucking rubbish back then.
Very different equipment.
It really depends what you're at. So I think if you're into CrossFit style training, we're on a pretty good run of podcasts with the Training Think Tank guys, which is like kind of like the top programming sort of company in America, which we went over and visited. And I think they're really high quality podcasts because they were in person and we're really excited about it. If they're probably just a little bit more into their general health and fitness, I think we did a really good podcast with Max Shank recently, which is probably just very more general and not like CrossFit specific, and has like some pretty cool takeaways for everybody.
Yeah, on our website, if you go to the mymuscleproject.com/podcast, there is like a category list. So like we have the top 10 all-time most downloaded, the top 10 as voted by the listeners, our top 20, and then we got like nutrition, supplements, athlete training, programming, mental performance, business, that sort of thing. So we did break them up a little bit just off people's interests because there's so many of them.
Wicked. Yeah, sweet. So that's the mymuscleproject.com.
Yes.
Awesome. Sweet.
Yep.
And I know you guys are into your books too, so you probably both do a fair bit of reading. If you could recommend, let's say, one book on fitness and one book on nutrition, has there been any that stood out to you that you're like, you know what, it's a non-biased approach, it's pretty practical, it's pretty easy to digest. Is there any books that stand out to you?
Can't say I read many nutrition books.
Okay.
I've read 2 in the last probably 12 months, and that was I did read Rob Wolf's book before he came on our podcast.
Yeah.
His new one, Wired to Eat. And then I read another one by a similar author. Maybe you can help me out with it. Stephen Guyenet. Do you know the name of his book?
Stephen Guyenet, no.
Look it up. Something a bit different.
Not Stephen Gundry.
No, it wasn't him. And they were pretty good books. Rob Wolf's book is actually really easy to read. His one was called The Hungry Brain. And I would say if you were like a trainer and you deal with overweight clients, I'd actually really recommend it. Probably should get our coach list to read it maybe. It's like why people get really fat and the wiring behind it in the brain.
Cool.
Which I found pretty interesting, even though I'd never really been fat. But it was still interesting because it explains to me why sometimes I eat until like I'm physically going to be sick. And then I start on dessert. So that was pretty interesting. And then if you want a non-training one, we've got heaps of books in our Audible account. And my most recent favorite book was Principles, Life and Work by Ray Dalio.
Oh, nice. I
held off reading for ages. Kind of annoying when everyone recommends a book at the same time. It like really pushes me away from it. But then I felt like I was like, I'll get him back. Like I'll just read it anyway, even though
the rebel, the rebel.
And then I was listening to it, and it was really good.
Is that on Audible? Did you say?
Yeah, it's on Audible. He reads most of it, not all of it, which is annoying, but probably 80%.
Yeah, I started listening to it. I've got to go back to it. Hey, I think I've got to I don't know, it's just maybe his voice or something, maybe just doesn't go with me, because some books I'm like, I really like it, and then if I listen on Audible, I'm like, whoever's reading this just can't do it.
I think the start was really boring, because, well, it depends if you're not into that stuff. The start can be really boring.
Yeah.
He's just talking about his personal life, and then once he gets into the more general principles, I think it's really good.
Maybe that's what I've got to do then, skip into the principles.
Yeah.
So for me, I have... the only training book I've read recently is called How Bad Do You Want It by Matt Fitzgerald, which is like a mental performance book for any athlete or anyone that's in the gym. It's super useful. To be honest, I haven't really read much outside of sort of like, I guess it's philosophy and business and like mindset sort of stuff. If you look through our library, a lot of it's to do with that sort of thing.
Cool.
So the last nutrition book, I think it's way, way back. It's probably like The Zone or something like that by
But we did do the PN course though.
We did, but that's not really a book. That's more like a course textbook, where you have to buy the textbook. Only because what I generally found with nutrition is it's only ever really talking about one thing. It's someone selling their method. It's either the paleo book, it's the keto book, or it's the zone book, or it's the 5-4 diet. It's like all this shit. And not a lot of it goes over principles. It's more about method.
Yeah.
And that's just like, I just can't get through that. But if it's a book on the psychology of eating, that's a lot more interesting to me. But yeah, recently I haven't read much on nutrition specifically. So for a second book, something that I would recommend that I read recently. I have brought it up a few times, but it's called How to Change Your Mind. It's by Michael Pollan.
Oh, yeah.
The subtitle is The New Science of Psychedelics, which I think is really, really interesting. Yeah, really interesting. Not everyone will have time or resonate with it, but I feel it's an interesting time that we live in 2018, how the world is. So for anyone that wants to, or that is interested in that subject, interested in science, interested in neuroscience, that sort of thing, how the brain works, it's definitely a good read. And conspiracy theories as well. It's kind of tied into that.
That's
When
cool.
did it come out? Is it a new book?
Yeah, this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the one by Michael Pollan, did you say that's you listened to that one, or you read that physically?
I listened to it. Yeah.
Wicked. All right, sweet. I'm going to put those in the show notes. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing all of that. So apart from the mindmuscleproject.com, where else can people find you guys?
Well, you can come down to the gym. It's pretty close by. It's one in Marrickville, one in Edgecliff, and one in Bonnie Junction. Just hop on the website. You can see the schedule and find out more about it there. And then, I'd recommend going to the podcast, the Mind Muscle Project. Just search for it on iTunes and start with the podcast we mentioned.
Yeah, sure. And also, guys, I recommend if you're going to download any other ones, download the one where they interview Mike Israetel, because that was awesome.
Yeah, it was really funny, actually.
He's the man.
I was just thinking about it. It's hilarious. We really need to get him on and talk about training.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. That'd be so good. You guys definitely got to get him back on.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right,
man.
guys, thank you so much again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll speak to you guys then.
Thanks, Tice.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Now, I've got a special gift for you. If you want to learn how I managed to lose 10 kilos and keep it off, then I've got the perfect treat for you. I've got a free intermittent fasting cheat sheet that I share on my website that shows you exactly how to diet effortlessly with intermittent fasting and fit it into your busy lifestyle. And more importantly, this is the exact guide that I follow every single day that allowed me to lose 10 kilos of body fat and keep it off 4 years later. So head on over to www.tysonbrown.com.au and pick up your free cheat sheet today and learn how to fit intermittent fasting into your life and diet effortlessly. Once again, that's www.tysonbrown.com.au. Opt in for the free cheat sheet and I'm going to send it straight to your inbox for free. Until next time, speak to you guys then.